Welcome to Coming Out of the Spiritual Closet with your host, me, Brittany Wittig. Join me every week to explore and demystify the world of modern spirituality. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me this week. This week I am going to talk a bit about my cancer journey. I realized that I had not yet announced on the podcast that I am cancer-free. Woohoo! And I really want to talk about my cancer journey through the lens of fear and my very healthy relationship with fear and how that played into my experience. Because what actually happened is not only am I cancer-free, but they cleared me significantly sooner than even the best case scenario that the doctors gave me. It was all the way back in March, actually, that I was cleared. And I really believe that my relationship with fear, my ability to work with fear, played an enormous role in healing my cancer relatively quickly. Now, I want to preface this by saying that this is my experience. It is unique to me. I am in no way implying that someone whose cancer takes longer to heal is somehow responsible for that. No one is responsible for their cancer. We're all on completely unique healing paths, and this is just the way that mine went and how I feel about my specific healing path. Okay, so many people have asked me how I managed to move through my cancer journey so smoothly. And I'm putting quotes around the word smoothly because I know that it probably did look smooth on the surface, but below the surface, there was a ton of conscious work happening. Tons, constantly. And most of this was work around the fear that was coming up through this experience. The thing that's amazing is that I can honestly say that I am happier, healthier, I feel more empowered, I'm doing so much better, I'm thriving more than I ever have in my life now, post-cancer, which is pretty wild. So I want to talk about my relationship with fear and how I used that to work through the cancer. What is my relationship with fear? What is this healthy relationship with fear I'm talking about? So when I feel fear rising up inside of me, whether it's in the form of anger, worry, anxiety, there's lots of things that we don't call fear that are actually fear. But anytime I feel fear coming up in me, I do what is really a counterintuitive thing, I think, to most of us. And I lean into that fear. I allow that fear to move through my body. I allow myself to feel the emotions associated with the fear. The reason I do this is because I know if I allow the fear to move through me, eventually I will be able to follow it to its root. And at the root of every single fear is something that I believe that is causing the fear. Now, it might not be something I consciously know that I believe. In fact, it usually is not something that I consciously know I believe. But if you're having a fear response, your subconscious is activating that fear response. So your subconscious believes something is dangerous. There is a belief causing that fear. And you can follow that fear right down to that belief. And then once you've identified that belief, you can change it. That's the cool part. But you can never change it if you don't see it. And so many of our beliefs, our subconscious beliefs, we can't see. And fear is like the ultimate compass that points us straight towards them. It's amazing. The big example of this on my cancer journey, it basically came in the form of following my intuition to my treatment choices. So there's an inverse relationship between your fear and your intuition. The louder your fear is, and your fear gets loud when you resist it or ignore it or avoid it, the louder your fear is, the harder it is to hear your intuition. And that's because your intuition is a very small voice. It's a whisper. It's quiet. And the voice of fear is very, very loud. So the more fear you're running, the harder it is to hear your intuition. This applies to my cancer journey because, of course, when I was first diagnosed, I was in total shock and I was terrified. I mean, who wouldn't be? I knew that I needed to be able to hear my intuition to work my way through my cancer journey. I knew that I needed to be able to follow my intuition to the correct treatment options for me. I needed to be able to follow my intuition step by step because my intuition will never steer me wrong. I know that for a fact. I talk about that all the time on this podcast. So when I was first diagnosed, I was terrified. I mean, I was in total shock. The fear was so big. I mean, it was just enormous. I'd only experienced that one time before, and that was when I was in my late 20s and my mom was diagnosed with a stage 4 uncurable terminal cancer, which I then spent 2 years taking care of her until she passed away. So the only time I'd ever experienced that fear was that experience with my mom, and here I was experiencing it again now about myself. But one big difference is I now have a different relationship with fear than I had when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. A very different relationship with fear. I work with my fear. And so even with this huge, shocking diagnosis, I went to work right away. And what that looked like at first was allowing myself to fully feel all of that fear. And let me tell you, it was not easy to lean into that much fear. It was hard, but I knew I had to do it. And so I just allowed it all in. I allowed all the fear in. I allowed all of the emotions in that needed to be felt around this. And so for the first few days, I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. I screamed, I cried. I really let myself go through it. Let myself feel all that fear and pain. And then, as it does when you allow yourself to feel, the emotions and the fear eventually started to lighten up a little bit. They started to recede a bit. And at that point, I was able to use some journaling, some self-talk, some different tools that I used to follow that fear that I had been feeling down to its root. And the root of that fear was a pretty simple belief that makes a lot of sense. The root was cancer is scary. Well, why is cancer scary? Because I believed that cancer could kill me. I think probably most of us run this belief, right? Of course, this is what we see culturally. Cancer can kill you. Logically, that's completely, that makes sense. And if you're looking at the 3D reality, that is true, right? But I knew that if I was running this subconscious belief that cancer could kill me, that I would be in a fear response through the entire process of having cancer. I would be terrified every time I had to go to the doctor. I'd be terrified every bit of treatment I had to go through. Everything would be scary. I recognized that. And I knew that if that was the case, if I was constantly in a fear response, I wouldn't be able to hear my intuition. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I needed my intuition to help me through this experience. So, how did I convince my subconscious cancer cannot kill me? Because that's what I needed to do. I needed to convince my subconscious. I needed to reprogram my subconscious so that the belief that I was running was that I will heal from cancer. I will heal from cancer, period. Well, I got to work on it right away. And I was very lucky because one of the first things that I do when I'm reprogramming a subconscious belief is I find evidence for the new belief that I want to believe. And I had some evidence, some really strong evidence that I would heal from cancer. And that evidence had come in the form of a very powerful spiritual experience that I had just before I was diagnosed. I talked about this extensively in my podcast episode. I think it's titled Cancer Diagnosis in Mexico. I really get into the details of this spiritual experience. But the summary is In this experience, I was told that it was not my time, that I was not going to die anytime soon. That was a big piece of evidence that I would heal from the cancer. But I didn't just leave it at that. I found more evidence. So I'm young. I was otherwise a very healthy person. I have a healthy lifestyle. I live a healthy lifestyle. And a big, big piece of evidence that worked for me, because it's a belief that I already run, was I have power over my reality. I truly believe that we have power over our reality. All of this evidence helped me to program the subconscious belief that I would heal from cancer. And what was so amazing is that as I began to program that belief into my subconscious, and I used a number of tools for that. They include subliminal messaging, emotional freedom tapping, self-hypnosis. There's lots of different tools. I used them all. I was not fucking around, excuse my language. So as I programmed this belief that I would heal from cancer into my subconscious, I felt the fear really lifting. I mean, it was amazing. It was like a dark cloud moved out of my life. And suddenly I was hearing the little voice of my intuition again. And the little voice started directing me. It started showing me what treatment I needed, what avenues to go down for treatment. And so I did end up doing Western medicine. I did end up having chemotherapy and radiation. But the thing that was so essential was that those treatments were not chosen from a place of fear. My intuition, my little voice, directed me to those treatments. I was also directed by my intuition to use a number of alternative treatments, nutrition, Reiki, past life healing. And as my journey continued, I removed treatments when my intuition told me to. So when my intuition told me, nope, that one you're done with, I would remove it. And I would add in new treatments. Somewhere well into my treatment process, I began receiving acupuncture because the little voice told me that I should. And basically, I followed my intuition. Every single thing it told me to do, I did it. That included treatment, it included emotional work, it included all kinds of things. But the beauty was that I was able to hear my intuition because I had this relationship with fear that allowed me to work with it. And don't get me wrong, other fears came up. It wasn't like I healed this one fear or I reprogrammed this one belief and boom, no problem, everything was easy. New fears came up every single day through this journey. And I was using my process to work through fear every single day. I mean, really probably every day, almost every day at least. And I'm just so sure that I could not have had such an incredible, quick, positive outcome without my relationship with fear being what it is. Now I am feeling healthier, happier, more empowered, more autonomous, more sovereign than I ever have before in my life. It's amazing. I came out of the experience of having cancer absolutely thriving in a way that I never have before. And it's just so beautiful and so amazing to me that it can work that way. And I'm so incredibly grateful for this framework that I have used many times in my life to make big leaps of faith. That's the thing. I've always been someone who likes to make big changes, who likes to expand their life. And this was the first time in my life that I've been able to use that courageous framework to get myself through an experience that life just threw at me. I didn't choose to leap off the cliff and have cancer. That just showed up. But it turns out that this framework works just as powerfully when it's not a leap of faith that I've chosen. And that, it just blew my mind. It's so incredible to me. I'm so grateful. So the other amazing thing that came out of this cancer journey is I've come into this crystal clear knowing of how I'm meant to help people, how I'm meant to serve. And that is by showing, by teaching this framework that I've been using to identify fear, to work with fear. This framework is literally life-changing. It's given me the tools and the courage to face anything that life throws at me. And it's given me the courage to create a beautiful, fulfilling life that I love. It's given me the courage to keep expanding, to keep growing, to keep becoming more and more myself. And so now I want to share it. I'm ready to share it. I actually feel like I have to share it. I would go so far as to say that it feels like my cancer experience was a portal that led me to my purpose, which is pretty incredible and actually makes me really emotional to say and to think about. So, for the first time ever, I'm taking a leap of faith here, and I'm going to be teaching a small group of students how to cultivate courage using my framework by learning to work with their fear rather than against it so that they can make big, expansive changes in their lives and so that they can handle anything that life throws at them for the rest of their lives. That's the thing. Once you know how to work with fear in this way, you can do it for the rest of your life. It's an invaluable tool, truly. So this is coming soon, very soon. If you would like to be the first to know when enrollment opens, head to the link in the show notes and you can get right on the wait list. I would absolutely love to see you there. Thank you so much for listening this week. As always, I so appreciate every one of you. I'm so grateful for you. If you would like to support the podcast, take a screenshot, share the episode, tell a friend about it, leave a review. These are all amazing ways that you can support the podcast. Thank you so much and have a beautiful week. I'll see you next time.